Let us go and dirty our hand and we'll see the reward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. K. Bastila from Starling Consortium. I call this a motivational speech because I'm already motivated, and you have created job for a lot of young people in the country. I think this is very motivational, and thank you so much. Last but not the least, we have Mrs. Aissata Day, the country coordinator of UNDP, and we are here today gathered for the National Youth Dialogue with support from the UNDP office. And this is not the first program I have moderated where UNDP comes in as a supporting agent, donor agent, to support young people in the country. And they have been working so closely with the National Youth Council, which represents young people, youth organizations in the country. And I think this is a program, an initiative from the National Youth Council where young people are gathered for town hall meetings from Banjul, and now we're here in the Lower River region. Aissata Day from the United Nations Development Program will be talking to us about the role of UNDP in supporting government and young people in the country. You're welcome, Mrs. Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, all. And I think I will not take much time because we all said it almost all. Just to say that UNDP is a global network. I think one of the biggest, and I am part of what we say is the next generation of UNDP, because as you know, since January 2019, we are going through a United Nations reform where each agency is focusing more in its agenda to really contribute 100% for the achievement of the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. And the idea of connecting the different generations, different views, and to reflect on common issues, especially in this particular context of the Gambia, is all about opportunities. I think all the intervenants said it so strongly, and it's just a pleasure for UNDP to be able to provide this platform so that throughout the processes, because there are so many, and the main one is really to have the implementation of the National Development Plan, which is, as you know, in line of the Agenda 2030, with the main principle is to leave no one behind, but to have also all the 7 Sustainable Development Goals as a priority for not only the government, but all stakeholders, the entire population, and mainly the youth. And this is basically why we wanted to make sure that we have this type of exchange, which also go beyond, because it's not about technical exchange, but it's also about knowing each other. I think I learned a lot this afternoon, and having these eminent personalities with me who are from the region. If you had more time, I would tell you also more about myself, but I feel particularly connected because since I arrived almost 4 months ago in the country, I was telling to my colleagues, each of us is privileged to sit where we are sitting now and to be able to contribute in this historic moment. And we really need to thank God of being alive at this particular moment. Because as we know, education is key in our society. And as long as I remember for myself, none of my grandparents went to school. So, and I can go along and share many other examples that makes me feel more connected where I come in this type of environment, because I lived exactly as Mrs. Kamara said and our colleagues said, and this is what we are also have as common values. And it's all about access to opportunities, but also all about generosity in the term of sharing knowledge, sharing what we have, and focusing what is really essential for the nation. Because it's only 20 years down the road when we see the results, or when our children or our grandchildren can benefit from that, that we would say, thank God I was there at that particular moment. So just to say that it's a pleasure for me to be here once again, and thank also my brother Taf and all my colleagues who contributed to this, and to say that for the government, we'll be always side by side to support the efforts. It's a long road, but I'm sure it will be a successful journey that for the people of the Gambia, so that we will have to mention Gambia as a reference for the whole continent. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aisha Day from UNDP. I wish we could have another round of questions, but I think the organizers will not allow me to do that because we have to get some questions from the floor. And I know they have discussed a lot of issues, with, from values to skills down to security, entrepreneurship. I think there are a lot of questions that you can ask them before they leave here. But before that, I want to invite the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mr. Usman Sise. He's deputizing the Minister of Interior, Honorable Yankuba Sonko. So, Mr. Sise, I think we should give you just 2 minutes. Is that fair? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Okay. It's raining, yeah. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and the panelists here present, and the representative from Ministry of Finance, and other youth groups that are here present. I'm here on behalf of the Ministry of Interior. And as a ministry, our responsibility is to maintain peace and security. And I heard people talking about development, entrepreneurship, and many other things. For us, we are not into that aspect. And our main role is to ensure that there is peace and stability in the country, so that any other person, any other player can come and perform. And as a ministry, we have 5 departments under us. That is the Gambia Police Force, the Gambia Immigration Department, Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Gambia Prison Services, and that is it. Then those departments all have their mandates. And the Ministry of Interior, our role is to ensure that there is peace and security in this country. And we have to understand that as citizens, we have a country to build. And there is a constitution in this country. And that law, we are here to enforce that law unless there is changes to the law. Any law that is in place until there is another law, then it's the responsibility of government and our ministry to ensure that there is, that law is enforced. Then there is no need to have conflict or whatever with people over that. The police or any other law enforcement agency is here for our own good and to protect the citizens and the stability of this country for us to achieve our foreseen development. And for that being the case, a lot of speakers have spoken on many issues here. Then I'll be here. If there's any question related to security and particularly to our ministry, we will be willing to provide response to those things. And I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sise. I would like to invite Bakari so that you can give the mics to the participants. Please, let's make it short and precise. Tell us your name, where you're from, or the organization you're representing, and please make it short and precise because they have to go back to Banjul, and it's some minutes after 5. Okay.
Okay. So where do you want them? Here? Yeah, so you can come here, you can form a queue. If you are interested in asking a question, you can form a queue. And also if you don't want to, if you are that side type like me and then you don't want to ask questions, you can write your questions down and then we will pass them to the different panelists. Yeah.
Do I need? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. My name's Dembo Kuyate. I work for the Gambia and with Gambia in Banjul. My question will go to our uncle from Tango. I was made to realize that a lot of organizations in the Gambia are registered, and they are looking for funding in the name of young people. I happened to know this some time ago when I attended a forum in Germany. I came to see organizations, 27 organizations, all said they formed their NGOs in the Gambia, and they are looking for funding through young people, but also the community. Actually, some of them, you know, they are called briefcase organizations. So some of them, you don't know those funds that they are generating, how are they spending it, and where are they even spending this? This is quite critical for me. And I think there is the need, if Tango, as an organization or a network, should tell us how are they coordinating, managing, or even controlling these NGOs that are robbing us broad daylight to a certain extent. I would want an intervention in this particular area.
Let's take 3 questions, and then I'll pass the mic to my panelists to answer their questions. Yankuba? Can you queue here so that we can just call you, so that you can walk to the podium?
Good evening. My name is Yankuba Diallo. Yes, I have a question for Mr. Fadera. You said tourism has 100%, and this baffled me very much, and I would like to have clarification on them, because people are complaining. We have, how do you say, historical sites that are being dilapidated, and then also we have we don't see anything working. Maybe the number of tourists have increased. If that is 100%, we can agree. But in what other ways do you have 100%? And also, I would like to thank Mr. Usman Sise for coming very late without apology. Thank you.
Yes, we can. Yeah, we can have him. Questions?
Yes. Yeah, follow up. Yeah. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Amadou Dabo. I'm representing RYC LRR. I have some questions for Mr. Honorable Fadera. You said in the NDP, government have commitment for youth empowerment. But looking at the budget allocation for youth and sport, can you help us to clarify this? Because the Ministry of Youth and Sport, looking at the importance of the ministry and government commitment to the ministry, I think 97.02 million was allocated for the Ministry of Youth and Sport, almost equivalent to some government agencies. It's not more than some government agencies like Ombudsman, the IEC and others. They are not, their budget allocation is not, is almost equal to youth and sport. Can you help us with that? If the government is committed to youth empowerment, then the amount allocated needs some explanation. And my other question, you said the NDP, about 1.7 billion was pledged for the NDP, and because of constraints, that's why the NDP have so many problems. I want to ask, is the NDP dependent on donor pledges? If that is the case, you said about 59.6% was delivered on those pledges in 2017, if I don't forget. 59.6%. That means a great amount of those pledges are being delivered, are being fulfilled. But we look at the results of those pledges that are fulfilled. We look at their impact on the lives of the people. Are they really making results, or have they really made the results, or otherwise? I want some explanation on that, because 59.6% of something that have been actually delivered have to have impact on the life of the citizen or the economy in general. And my other question is, I think I told him I have some medications that I would want to be delivered. Oh, okay, fine. And I think this is a follow-up question to the government commitment to youth empowerment, because this figure of 41.5% of unemployment is staggering. It's really disturbing. And is the government also having a database? Are we having unemployment reports that will help us to be able to gauge the performance of the government with regards to employment creation? Are we having employment report, like annual employment, or be it monthly employment report, yearly employment report, and so on and so? Because if you are telling us 41.5% of us are not employed, but how much are you creating per month? How much employment are we creating per year? We should be able to know that. Then we can check and balance this too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Can we have Mohammed Dao?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammed Waidavo, and I want to ask Madam Aminata. No, Madam TRC, it's not you, it's Aminata. No, the Polish. Cisse. Okay, I want to ask the Cisse name about the protest, especially public control or public order acts. She made mention of a very important points, because holding government to account is the responsibility of the citizens. And we are always concerned to that. And now she gave an excuse, in my own view, that the police may not be able to give you a permit because of so and so reason. It is unclear to me. Maybe she can make clarification to that. Why are people not giving permit when they want to do protests or other issues?
Let's have, we answer. So we start with Mr. Fadera. Yes.
Thank you very much. I hope I will do a better job of this issue of pledges, commitments, and disbursements. What I said, the 59.6 is the commitments. As at end December 2018, 59.6% of the pledges were committed. By commitment, we mean where documents were signed, where agreements were reached, that these funds are going to be made available for certain interventions. So that doesn't equate to the fact that these were funds that were received. When we talk about disbursements, I gave a different figure, which translates to about 10%. And I did say it is most of the time, initiation of projects are relatively slow. But some of the main drivers like infrastructure, energy, etc., once they start, once implementation starts, the disbursements could pick up very, very quickly and significantly for that matter. And when you talk about whether it is dependent on the NDP is dependent on financing by the development partners, to some extent, yes. It's a matter of degree. Because if it does not, to some degree, depend on it, then we would not have gone for an international conference for the Gambia. We would have 100% financed the NDP. But we had a financing gap which was stable. So the financing gap indicates that government has put in some resources. So if you say dependent, I would say yes, to some extent. But if you say 100% dependent, I would say no. Okay? When it comes to budgetary allocation to youth, again, it depends on how you identify or how you define this. If it is meant the understanding is resources that are allocated to the Ministry of Youth and Sports and the National Youth Council, yes, they're significantly small compared to some other government departments. But if you tell me allocation to youth empowerment, I will tell you that is totally different. I want to make the case here that investments, government allocations to the Ministry of Health, Education, agriculture, infrastructure, ICT, tourism, any of the other sectors contributes to some extent to youth empowerment. When we're sick, we go to what? We go to hospitals. Some of us are in the agricultural sector, policies that are developed, projects, etc., to some extent benefit. We have youth farmers, some of them informal. When inputs are procured, they benefit youth. So that also is part of what? Allocation to youth empowerment. And for me, it will be a misnomer where bulk of the resources will go to the Ministry of Youth for youth empowerment, because what is critically needed is to make sure that we invest more, not only to policy, not only to sensitization, but to actual productive sector where most of these youths are engaged in. If investments to education, if we're increasing scholarships, if we're increasing investments in health, all these for me are youth sensitive and they contribute to youth empowerment. Again, in terms of employment data, I agree with you, and if the full report comes out, you will see that one of the areas that we have highlighted as a challenge is the availability of timely data. And that includes employment data in this country. If we go to other countries, more advanced countries, like you have monthly, quarterly, annual employment data returns. So on a monthly basis, like when you look at what? If you follow politics in other parts of like Trump, he would say, oh, this month compared to the previous month, employment has picked up, and it is disaggregated by race, by region, by state, etc. Unfortunately, we really have to enhance our national statistical system to be able to reach that kind of stage where we will be able to have regular and periodic data on employment that will be disaggregated by age cohort, but also by region. In terms of the performance of the sectors, I think I wanted to make this clear. I said the assessment is based on the indicators that have been agreed. You cannot measure everything under the sun relating to a particular sector. And when it came to the National Development Plan, we cannot also cover everything under the sun for all the sectors. That's why we went through a rigorous prioritization exercise to see what we can do, taking into consideration resource constraints. One, resource being time. We're talking about 4 years. We cannot do everything. 2, monetary resources. And 3, even absorptive capacity. So at the end of the day, when we talk about 100%, we're talking about tourism arrivals, we're talking about tourism's contribution to GDP, and the number of areas or arts and whatever historical centers they wanted to renovate and revitalize. So that may not be over the 4 years all the historical centers in this country. I hope that clarifies. So when the report comes out again, you will look at the indicator. The assessment is based on the indicators that we have agreed at the beginning. If you don't agree, let's say, for example, if we don't, let's say we're talking about roads, but some of the roads are not included in that. So if those roads are not done, they are not what? They are not necessarily part of the assessment. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to underscore what Mr. Ferreira said. I think what we do not realize is that if you look around this room, how many retired people are here among us, besides Mr. Njai? All of you are youth. Yes. I mean, all ministries, departments, the people they employ are young people. They don't employ people like me who are 60, 70, 80 years old. All of them are normally 25, 18, 20, 30, and so forth. And so all the budgets for all the ministries are targeting you. And you have to make use of it. Nobody would invite you and come and sit at a chair when you don't deserve it. So the question is, make sure that you do well at school or you do well in anything you want to do in your life. Now, the gentleman who asked about briefcase NGOs, that's the name they use them. Let me clarify this. There are three different types of organizations. You have international organizations, or we call them international NGOs, like Action Aid, Child Fund, CRS, and so forth. Those are international organizations that are registered in other countries, and they are in the Gambia. They have a funding offices in other countries, and they are registered in the Gambia as non-governmental organizations. You also have national NGOs. Those are NGOs that are registered locally in this country, are called national NGOs, and they are registered with a government agency under the Ministry of Local Government called Ministry of Lands, and the agency is NGO Affairs Agency. Then you have a third one, which is called charity. These are the majority, these are a group of organizations that can easily work to Ministry of Chambers, AG Chambers. They are here. I think AG Chambers people are here. They register them and they go into the society. Nobody checks them. Nobody looks after them. They do whatever they like. Where they get their funding, they do, and worse of it, they call themselves NGOs. So probably the gentleman was talking about charity that have registered here with AG Chambers, and they are doing their thing. They go around and get funding, and when they come, they just do whatever they like. But international NGOs, local NGOs, they all report annually to NGO Affairs Agency with regards to their budget, their activities, their plans, and so forth and so on. So no NGO, be national or international, just goes away without checks and balances. But the charities that are registered on the NGOs, and there are over 7,000 of them in this country, they are not accountable anywhere. Right? So, in terms of how do we monitor them, I think, again, AG Chambers and NGO Affairs Agency should look into that and see how they would monitor them properly and to ensure that the monies they bring in this country are for the benefit of the people that deserves it. Thank you.
Mariam, Sise.
I will answer briefly, and I will give it to the DPS to continue from where I stopped. Okay, you mentioned about the issue of denial of permits. Yes, when you apply for permit, it is not automatic. It's a process. It's not that when you apply for a permit today, immediately you should be given approval. If you apply for a permit, when the letter reaches the police headquarters, it goes to the operation commander's office, who will then refer it to the criminal intelligence unit. That is the unit that will invite some members of that particular group or people who request for that particular public gathering and have interview with you to have better discussion and understanding of your motive of organizing that particular public gathering. The other issue also is the intelligence officers don't only stop with the interview with the organizers. They also go to the ground to see whether the area is feasible for one to embark on a protest or any other form of public gathering. So as such, sometimes the feedback they will bring is the place is not conducive or is not safe for somebody to embark on a public activity at that area. So in such instances, what they do is they call the organizers again and advise you to move the venue of the protest or the public gathering. So, but not sometimes also when you apply, we know we have so many activities going on in the country. Sometimes political activities are going on, political dialogue with various political parties. And those people also deserve the right to protection, just as the young people deserve. So we are here to serve all categories of the people. And of course, young people should be our priority. But in the event that your activity request came while the police are busy on other activities, if they advise you to change venue or date, you should comply with them so that anytime you are to embark on that particular activity, they could provide you with the necessary security needed. Thereby, there will be no problem. But if you want to force yourself and embark on an activity without getting assurance of your security, definitely anything that comes out of it, and the blame cannot come back to the police because they have already advised you to cancel or change the date of your activity or venue of activity to another location. Thank you. I don't know
Okay, thank you, madam. And I think she has almost exhausted everything. The process is very clear. You applied, you'll be called upon for background check. Mr. Njai mentioned about responsibility here. When you want to organize a protest, you have to take responsibility. But during the background check, some information will be missing. Some people will not be willing to take the full responsibility. Then the police cannot also automatically grant you permit like that. When something happens, nobody will be held accountable. Then that's the case. But as you know, if you look at the record, police have been given permit. Even today, I think they gave the 3 years Jordan a permit for their rally in Birkama. These things are happening. Yes. No, huh? No, I mean a rally. 3 years Jordan are organizing a rally in Birkama. No. What I mean is, I'm just giving an example that they are giving permit. If you look at record, the only rejection was maybe that of the Birkama issue. That's it. Apart from that, political rallies, all others, then there is this issue. And I want to make this appeal to all of us. I think we are all youth. Maybe whether I'm qualified or not, Lamin can help me. But the issue is, let's test our democracy through the courts also, not always through protest. If the IGP deny a permit, you can take him to court. Why are we not doing that? It's not only protest that will address our problem. Yesterday, there was a ruling in Scotland for the Prime Minister on declining the suspension of the Parliament. And there's a ruling that is unlawful. Let's test our democracy through the courts also, not only through protest. We have to understand that we have a country to build. We are all citizens, and we have to be very careful of certainty. The police are seriously constrained. We have to know that as a fact. They are seriously constrained. They cannot be at the police stations, at our communities, the public order there, whatever. We have to be realistic at times. Nobody have the intention to deny anybody a right to protest. That one is guaranteed in the Constitution. It's guaranteed. But how to go about it, that's where we have problem, and which we need to understand. Thank you very much.
Yes. Babukar Jallo.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I am Boubacar Diallo, Chair National Assembly of the Gambia. I had a question regarding to the NDP. As Mr. Fadera had been mentioning, I had a lot of issues being discussed here about youths, elders, I can say, the old one at home, but I didn't have anything about children. Like more especially for the disabled and the orphans. These are people that are, very, very vulnerable in the society. As like, I just had a quote from a friend that, school is resuming just next week. And all kids are requesting for textbooks, exercise books, and other things, school materials. What of the orphans without parents who did not have anyone to approach my textbook, my exercise book, and other issues? Yes, this is my question. What under NDP, what had you planned for the children? Thank you.
Okay. We have Mr. Jassy. Thank you very much. I was almost bemused and nearly spring to my feet, having listened to the deliberation delivered by Mr. Fadera on the NDP. It evoked my intellectual memory, having remembered reading a book in the year 2015, a book entitled International Politics, written by Robert L. Wenzel, in which event he made distinctions between the type of policies we had. Of course, having conducted a diagnostic appraisal of the problems of this country, you then continue to give a brief synopsis of what is entailed in the NDP. And statistically, and on the basis of indices delivered, you told us some of the achievements that were registered and some of the shortcomings or the lapses that we encountered. Of course, good riddance. I want to ask, on the basis of the shortcomings that we had, what are the causes of the problems or those shortcomings? And I have to, in appraisal from my own thought, that the NDP I earlier criticized was destitute in merit. The NDP was one that was not formed upon the realities of the environment of this country, number one. Number two, the NDP actually was not formed upon the thoughts and the opinions of the rural people, the people of the Gambia. And it was Robert L. Wenzel who told us, when you make a policy and it is not informed by the reality and the thought of the people whose problem is going to address, the policy will fail. And I want to imagine that is the reason why we had some shortcomings under the NDP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jassy. The next one, Mr. Karim Waidabo.
Assalamu alaikum. Wow, the voice, huh? I am Karim Waidabo, the youth rep, the youth councillor at Mansakongo Area Council. I just want to divide my statement to two folds, that is to talk to the moderators, to give us time to ask questions. This is the first time we are having this opportunity in our region. We want to exhaust our doubts. So don't be in a haste to go back to Combo. Allow us to clear with you. We want to thank all the moderators, most especially our own sister Inyuma Sato Kamara, who is from us, and we are very happy that she is here. And Ms. Kamara, we want you to be coming all the time from now, please. Now, my question is going to the police officer. I think we need to have a genuine dialogue, a dialogue that is going to solve our problems, a dialogue of honesty. We know how permits and police treats people in this country. The Deputy Permanent Secretary is saying, when other people request permit, noise is not made, they are given permits smoothly and swiftly. When others demand or request it, they are delayed, they are asked all kinds of unnecessary questions. It causes problems. There must be a standard benchmark exposed to the public for everybody to see. These are the criteria that you need to fulfill for you to have a permit. If you don't fulfill it, you will not have it. If you fulfill it, you are guaranteed to have it at a particular time swiftly. When other institutions or groups want permit, they have it as soon as they want it. They go around the country, they do all what they want. The Deputy Permanent Secretary said something like, the permit is given to the fire Amaditria Jodna. It is not a protest. The permit given was for a meeting. But when it is a protest, there will be noise, there will be a lot of scrutiny, there will be delay, and it's going to create problem. The police have to be neutral in order to bridge the gap between them and us. Because if that gap is not bridged, we will continue to have problems because we don't trust them. We believe that they are always with the sitting government and the presidency is always right in this country. This is what has to change. If it doesn't change, we will continue to have problems and we will not respect our policemen. When they are in uniform, we will take them as enemies. That is the fact. Until we have that truthful dialogue and we look at each other's face and said, this is not correct and we don't want it, we cannot have it for us to develop, then we will continue murmuring. We all know here, when other groups want permit, it's simple. But when the others, especially when it's time for you to protest, for you to be able to show out your grievance about some of the things that are not correct, that has conflict with morality, that has conflict with charismatic leadership, that has conflict with rule of law, that has conflict with the way in which our norms and our cultures that we took from our parents, as Nima said, are going to be fouled and destroyed, we felt that it's okay. That's not what young people should accept. We are not going to accept it today, we are not going to accept it tomorrow, until leaders are made accountable and they start listening to us as we are the one who put them there. Then we will keep on following them until we uproot them from where we put them for us to have the Gambia that we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next one is Binta Oba. Why is Binta Oba?
Assalamu alaikum once again. I have this question for Mr. Fadera, UNDP. I'm sorry today you'll receive most of our questions. Somebody come here, I think Yankuba, he says like, the allocation for youth is very small, and you come up with like, there are other sectors that the youth are benefiting from. Okay, the question goes, what specific yardstick has been used to establish the statistics on the number of youth benefiting from other sectors? How did you know whether the youth are benefiting on those sectors or not? How did you know? And yeah, it's a reliable question. And there should be indicators, otherwise government should conduct statistical surveys to find out about their respective youth, women, and children are benefiting from services. So, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Babu Karanya.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm your father. So, okay. Good evening. I have one question and one clarification. My first question will go to Mr. Yabo. Mr. Yabo, you know we are in these reforms, and I think it is important us as civil societies also hold the government accountable to all these processes that we are going. And if you know, the Constitutional Review Commission will soon be history, because they will be doing their draft, after which will be sent to the President, later to the National Assembly. What will we do as civil society organization to ensure that those recommendations that the voices of the people are adhered to? One. Two, after in the act, maybe I might be wrong, but there is no timeline that is given after the draft is out. Us as civil society organization, what are we going to do to ensure that there is no delayance in terms of finance, in terms of logistics, in terms of any other thing, that we will use this current constitution to go for elections? What are we doing as civil society organization? That is important for us to know. The other thing will go to the police. I think that's the clarification I need. I think the police need to help us understand what is the difference between freedom of assembly and protest. We have problems. The problem that we have is, I was part of Occupy Westfield. I met with the Inspector General of Police. We had a meeting and an agreement that we were going to do a freedom of assembly to show our dissatisfaction on issues. Until the agreement later, there was a change in the dilly-dally of things. Political parties are the biggest threat to our national securities. Not the youths. We have armless. Not the people of Birkama, not the Occupy Birkama, Dafadoy people. They all had their protests. Did you ever have any issues? No. Political parties have protests and they fight every now and then. They insult people in media houses. We saw them sending other bad messages on audios and WhatsApps. Young people goes and assemble on issues that affects their life without no problem. They are armless people. Even razor blade, they cannot use it to arm others. So the thing is, the police needs to define what is the meaning of freedom of assembly and protest, so that we have peace among ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, the last question from Mr. Bakari Juwara. Yes. Yes, except Amadou. But I think time is running.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bakari Juwara. I am a change agent, at the same time a demographer. So I have a concern because since people have been giving out their concerns and questions, I did not hear of one thing, that is decentralization. Because when we are talking of peace and stability, when we rule out decentralization, that means we cannot gain peace and stability. And as a part of an MDFT, when I was in the field of extension, we were trained by FACE, that is Fight Against Exclusive Hunger, on the decentralization methodologies. And these methodologies were applied at community level, where we meet communities, develop what we call CAP, community action plans, and these community action plans are forwarded, at the wards where ward development plans have been developed. Then those ward development plans move to the area councils where you have regional development plans. And I believe that when we want to bring about peace and stability in the Gambia, those are the plans that should be funded by government and other UN agencies to ensure that those plans are implemented according to how they were planned. Because these plans, there are a series of activities that are identified, but they are prioritized according to the basic needs of communities. So when we want to bring about peace and stability, those are the issues that we should address because they will be at the doorsteps of the people. And when you bring development to the doorsteps of the people, that means that you are assuring peace and stability among communities. So my other fear is we are talking of the reforms. So if these reforms are not, we may believe that they are domesticated, but to a certain extent they may not be domesticated because we don't have a justified representation when it comes to people who we dialogue with in terms of coming up with reforms. Because when you go deep into the rural Gambia, it's very common, even when people are on track, there are certain communities, they will say, oh, that community is far off the road, no need for us to reach there. So that means you are leaving out those people behind. Why should we leave them behind? They are part of the country. So they should be rich, and that their aspirations and their desire, should be something that we should learn from them and try to incorporate it in whatever we are doing. So without decentralization, I don't think anything can, move ahead, move forward. And because of these reforms, I also fear that these reforms will be they will be documented and they will be just gathering dust, because decentralization serves as a threat to people at higher positions. So when people at higher positions, they feel threatened, they will not apply the decentralization process. So I'm calling for a radicalization approach. Wherever you are, you try to become a positive radical. That means, you try to change things at your level. Where you are, you try to implement things as how it is spelled out in accordance with the laws of the Gambia. That is what I want to contribute. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are starting with who? Mr. Fadera again. Mr. NDP. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm really beginning to enjoy this session. And I think we should have this much more often. Because I think whatever, we all have to acknowledge that there are information gaps that we can really fill. So it is important that we come together once in a while as youth to be able to discuss issues relating to the development of this country. That is very, very important. NDP and the children, with hindsight, I think we could have done better. Most of the time, I think children are represented by other people. That's the fact, okay? First, I stand here, I speak as a public official, but you should know that I'm also a citizen. I also have I'm also a parent. I'm also somebody who is from the rural areas. I'm just a stone's throw from here, okay? I will not just paint what a glossy picture of what does not exist. I go to my village every now and then. I know there are development challenges. And it's my hope and my prayer that before I pass on, at least we leave a better Gambia for our children, whether they are in the urban, whether they are in the rural areas, as far as this country is concerned. So I think we could do better in terms of engaging children in what? In the development process, so that they will not just be represented. But up and above that, we've worked closely with what? With the Child Protection Alliance, CPA, when the NDP was finalized, to try and come up with a child-friendly version of what? Of the NDP. Okay, we worked together, drafts were said until they had what? Our buy-in into that. I don't know whether that has been printed, but I think that's something that we can pursue, so that at the end of the day, this child-friendly version of the NDP can be made available to children in schools and in other environments, so that they will also appreciate this. But going forward, probably in our consultations, we need to find innovative mechanisms of also engaging the children in the process. And as I was thinking, we're about embarking on what? The voluntary national reporting. I was going to tell Mr. Toure, probably this should be a learning curve for us, for the terms of reference and for some of the consultations we're speaking about for now. We have not dedicatedly made any provision for children, and I think we would what this is. So thank you very much for that. For people who are differently able, we actually consulted them. Apart from the general consultations that took place, we consulted them in the process. Okay. I can remember several interactions that we had with the Gambia Federation of the Disabled during several thematic working group meetings at hotels at Senegambia. And if you go through the National Development Plan, you will see that there is a dedicated outcome in making sure that the plan is inclusive and that it takes care of what? It takes care of the differently able what? Differently able people. How do we take care of all the children who are less fortunate, orphans and all that? If you look at what? The National Development Plan, you will see that it is very strong on social protection. And there is a major social protection program that is in the offing. The Secretariat is being established, and they want to, as part of that, they want to come up with a register for this country so that who are eligible. And some of this will include children that are orphan, etc., so that they will be able to receive support, because it's not everybody that you would say, get up, go and work and sweat and earn a living. You have to give them opportunities so that they can go to the next level, and they will be able to now depend on what? On their labor as well as on their sweat. Shortfalls in the NDP and in terms of the consultations. I think I made a brief reference to the consultation process as far as the NDP is concerned. I don't think it was an academic exercise where, let's say, experts just sat down in Banjul and in their best wisdom and in their technical competence just came out with the National Development Plan. I made it clear here that we did a common country assessment with the UN country team. For the first time, that was the first time I visited some parts of this country, Wuli and the Sandus, and I went to villages. We have what? The Common Country Assessment has for the first time consulted at the district level. There is no perfection in human endeavor or in human undertaking. There is always room for improvement. But the demerit of democracy is also that it is representative. That means it is going to be difficult to have the general population, everybody, being part of that process. So even at district level, you have representatives from the villages. But I think that's closer to the villages than the last time when we did the previous development plan, that's the program for accelerated growth and employment. All we did, the consultations were at the regional level. So like, we came here, Mansakonko, we went to what? Kerawan, we went to Janjambure, we went to Basse. That was more excluding than at the district level, because they told us when we went to Sandu, that if you had done this in Basse, a lot of us would not have participated. Because that means selection will be just at the district level, maybe 2 or 3 people from each district across URR and they participate. But now we're talking about people coming from what? Coming from the villages. So I want to assure you that to the extent possible, this has been very, very consultative. And there is ample evidence to that. There is the Common Country Assessment Report. There are regional reports that even identifies priorities at district level. Like when all these district consultations were done, they were consolidated. So you can see what Kian Central, where I come from, what the people say are the challenges. And this is what has informed the NDP. And I think it is very important that we appreciate this. We will not tell you that the whole population was involved in this, because that would mean 100% of the population. But it was very, very participatory, and all segments, women, youth, men, the differently able, were targeted in these consultations at the district level. So to say it was just like maybe some kind of academic exercise, I think is not in line with the evidence that we have on the ground. And I would want, and if you want, please, you can consult, and I will give you the reports that were gathered from the consultation processes that fed into the NDP. As far as how do we assess that youth are benefiting, I think this is very important. And I think this is somewhere that we also need to strengthen. And I think that this has always been our discussion with the Ministry of Youth. If you are coordinating, it is important, because whatever project comes here, there's hardly a project that will not have a youth component. So that means we really need to strengthen monitoring and evaluation in the youth sector, so that when we commit ourselves, when projects are coming, when government interventions are coming, that 60% of the beneficiaries should be youth. We should be able to assess during implementation that this is actually the case. Or there are challenges, what do we do to rectify it? And I think that is an area that we can really improve on. Thank you very much.
The question of having elections, or CSOs ensuring that election has taken place. I think elections are enshrined in the Constitution, the timing when elections should be held. So CSOs what they can do is to ensure that elections are free and fair, right? Right procedures are taken, probably right candidates are selected, and the conduct of election is proper. Now, if you are making reference to a particular incident that is happening currently, the 3 years Jotna, this is an agreement between parties. And my personal view is the parties should sit together and resolve this. For me, there is no vacant or there is no need at the moment for elections, unless the parties agree that what we have agreed can no longer work, or what we have agreed we will not abide by that. In that case, CSOs would have different views. People have different views on this 3-year Jotna. But I can assure you that with regards to election, conducting elections and so forth, we are on top of things. Next week, ECOWAS is coming. Yeah, we are having some international guests, and there will be a meeting at UNDP. All CSOs are invited, and we'll be talking about elections and the way elections are conducted, in what we need and how we should go about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for information on the mission that he just mentioned, you know, for the United Nations to be involved, on electoral assistance, there are some certain conditionalities, and there's a need assessment. The Gambia has already, through this Independent Electoral Commission, requested electoral assistance in key areas. And the mission that will be arriving, it's difficult to speak if everybody is speaking. Especially when you don't have a mic, you don't have electricity. So I was just explaining that for the United Nations to be involved on electoral assistance in each country, in any country, there's a mission which is called the Need Assessment Mission, which is conducted by the Department of Political Affairs and Peace Building, that is deployed And the mission that is arriving tomorrow and will be here all next week will meet with all the stakeholders to know whether we are in conditions to support an electoral process in the Gambia. And the report will be directly submitted to the Secretary General and with the Under Secretary General who is responsible